From the station on your side, you're watching WAVY News 10 at 6.
America has always stood for a chance at a better life to those fleeing oppression.
But a Jewish girl on board a ship escaping the Nazis asked the question, what if America doesn't want us? It was a plea to people in Norfolk.
When we got the call, we answered.
What happened at Sewell's Point nearly 80 years ago has left a legacy of kindness that saved lives.
It's a little-known story in American history, world history.
August 9th, 1940, more than a year before the United States entered World War II, the SS Kwanzaa left Lisbon, Portugal with 317 passengers, mostly Jewish refugees fleeing the Nazis.
Jews had had their citizenship taken away, they weren't allowed to go to school, they weren't allowed to work in professions, and they were essentially becoming, they were in many places literally becoming ghettoized.
The Kwanzaa first stopped in New York City, but 121 passengers were denied entry. Much of America at that time was isolationist, not wanting to take sides in another European war. After a stop in Mexico, the Kwanzaa and its 80-plus passengers stopped for coal in Norfolk.
The folks on the ship were not allowed to disembark at all, so this group of dedicated women made home-cooked meals, took them to the ship.
Such acts of conscience inspired a new documentary film, Nobody Wants Us.
Who would have thought that refugees even came here? I didn't know that they came here until someone told me about this story.
Annette Lockman is one of those stories. She was just 3 years old, looking to join her father. Her wide eyes saw the promise of America.
Looking through the porthole was my sister, my mother, and I. And my father was on the dock and he was reaching with his hand up to us. And the journalist took this photograph.
The Kwanzaa stayed in Norfolk 6 days, while Newport News attorney Jacob Morowitz filed a lawsuit on behalf of 4 refugees against the passenger line.
And they had this look of real terror in their eyes.
Walter Rosenberg joined the Navy in 1944, but 4 years earlier, he remembers his home on Graydon Avenue as a sanctuary for a woman and her teenage daughter.
They had very few possessions with them. Had just small suitcases with a few clothes in it, and that was it. What did she want most of all? A cup of coffee, real coffee, because they had nothing but this ersatz stuff that was made of sawdust.
Finally, after passengers sent a telegram to First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, she pressured the State Department to interview them, and all were granted asylum, much to the chagrin of the Assistant Secretary of State, Breckinridge Long.
He was concerned that there were either Nazi spies or communist spies among the passengers of the ship. Obviously, he didn't meet the passengers of the ship, who were basically families who were clearly escaping with nothing but what they could carry.
That escape led them through Norfolk.
They just poured down the dock down the gangway, and some of them kissed the ground, and smiles on their faces. That was worth every bit of effort that we put in.
All for a second chance in America. And that second chance took them to New York City. By mid-1941, barely any refugees were allowed into the U.S., but the legacy of the Kwanzaa is how individuals made a difference for people who just wanted a chance at freedom. On WAVY.com, see my full interview with the director of Nobody Wants Us.